good morning to our witnesses and online as well. I suppose, and we've heard it many times in this committee here, what is stark is the fact that we rank one of the lowest in Europe for employment of people with disabilities, and that we've the largest disability employment gap. And your own department carried out a cost disability report or review, which found that the cost of disability ranked between something 7,500 to 12,500 on average for people with disabilities as well. So we're aware of all of these things, and yet nothing seems to be changing or moving. I mean, a lot of people that come in here and say that the biggest disincentive to going to work is the fear of loss of disability allowance and secondary benefits such as the medical card and the free travel pass. So I'm wondering if your department has looked at these issues again, because when you take into account the cost of disability payment, really disability allowance, you know, the person needs to retain that at least until they're well established in their employment and are earning a very decent wage that can be proven to support them and taking into account the cost of disability. And I know Mr. Hammersley mentioned about, you know, cooperation between, say, social protection and education, and you mentioned as well that every department has a responsibility. Do you find that there is much cross-departmental cooperation on the issue of disability and looking at this whole issue of the poor employment rate in the country and incorporating the cost of disability into it? And I'm just wondering, do you do disability awareness training for those who work with disabled people in your department? Because I have a situation that was just brought to my attention this week of a young woman whom the employability service feel meets the criteria for their services, but the person in the department, social protection department, has refused to refer her because they're insisting that it is that you have to have a 20% deficit in ability to work. But long-term medical illness, which this woman has, also is a criteria. So, I mean, and the manner in which this man in the department has dealt with the young woman and the people in the employability service is not good enough at all. So I'm just wondering, do you provide awareness training, and is it a case that everybody is au fait with the reasons for referring someone to employability, because they actually feel that he's mixing it up with the wage subsidy scheme, which is a different scheme? So,
thank you very much, Vice Chair, and I'll go through your question. So in terms of fear of loss of the disability of payment and the secondary benefits, I mean, the department is very cognizant of that, and I mean, in various budgets we have made some changes to the means test and to, I suppose, ensure that people can keep their payments, you know, much with a higher level of income. So, for example, on the disability allowance, currently a person can earn up to approximately €495 per week and still retain some of their disability allowance payment. In relation to the secondary benefits, a person with disability allowance can keep the free travel for 5 years after they secure employment, and to engage with colleagues in the Department of Health and the Minister for Health, the medical card can also be retained for 3 years, as I understand. But having said that, we keep everything under review all the time. When budgets come up, we look at what we can do. So it's certainly something we keep under review. In terms of cooperation with all departments, I can say that there is a kind of a I mean, as I said in my opening statement, you know, this is a cross-departmental issue that needs to be addressed on a cross-departmental basis. There are two main strategies, I suppose, focused on assisting and dealing with people with disabilities and ensuring that they can access the labour market. There's the National Disability Inclusion Strategy and the Comprehensive Employment Strategy for People with Disabilities. The department has a set of children equality, disability integration youth, our lead department for both those strategies, and there is a steering group chaired by the Minister for State with responsibility for disability, and our department obviously is represented on it. And you mentioned the recent report on the cost of living for people with disabilities, and that is been, I suppose, steered through that steering group chaired by Minister Butler. Increasingly, and we also in our own department, we have our Pathways to Work strategy, which is the government's national employment services strategy, and there are commitments there in relation to our Strand 4 is around leaving nobody behind, and it's focused on those groups of customers who would be furthest away from the labour market, who would have some disadvantage in terms of accessing the labour market. And again, those commitments are contained in that strategy, go across government. The issue in relation to training, and before I hand over to my colleague here, Annette will go through the training, but we do have 74 staff based in all our interest centres fully trained on engaging with customers who have a disability. We've 13 kind of disability liaison officers, and then we have other staff who are trained to engage with them. In relation to the issue you have, where there seems to be a mix-up, or there seems to be some issue in relation to somebody being referred to employability, if you want to, after the meeting, give me the details and we'll follow up on that.
Hello, how are you? So just to clarify on the training that's provided, so as a department we do have access to Be Disability Aware training for all staff, and they can benefit from that and take that training. But with specific reference to our Public Employment Service, we have at the moment 74 trained officers, and they participate in disability awareness training. The content is provided in an online environment to our officers, and the purpose is to educate and train the participants in that training around the core aspects of disability-related issues, and give them confidence to engage with the colleagues. Some of the items that are covered in the training is communication, use of appropriate language when dealing with people who have a disability, training on the types of disabilities, the relevant legislation that may come up when people have disabilities, disability etiquette, how to engage with people, barriers for people with disabilities, discrimination, and how to create an inclusive society. And also there is learning on the topic of reasonable accommodation. So that is provided to, at the moment, 74 of our officers. So we have an officer in every area in our intro services across the country who has availed of this training and is working in that remit, so should be fully aware of employability, the requirements, what makes a person suitable for employability. And as you've rightly pointed out, Deputy, it is that the person has the necessary training, education, motivation and ability to go to work, and needs that support. So it does sound like there's some confusion there, and we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.